ready? Call the meeting to order. Ask everyone to stand for a moment of reflection. Pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Seated. We've got an agenda that's been presented. I'll ask for a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Petway. Thank you for Evan Newbill. All in favor of adopting the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I understand that safety is a core value here at JEA.
Safety is a core value, Mr. Chairman, and with that, we start every meeting with a safety briefing, certainly for those of us that work here every day as a reminder, and for those that may be guests today. In the event of an emergency, we will exit the building through the stairwell to the left of the elevators. As we came in, we will hold the guardrail down our 19 flights of stairs, and we will gather on the southeast corner of Main and Church in the open parking lot across from the Salvation Army. I would ask everybody to recognize the individual on their right and as their safety buddy and ensure that that individual gets out safely with you. Mike Brost will be in charge of CPR, Ted Hobson, security, number one. And with that, Mr. Chairman, that's our safety report.
Thank you, Mr. McElroy. Call on our Chief Legal Officer, Ms. Jody Brooks, for our Sunshine Law Public Record Statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a duly noticed public meeting. Quorum is present. Do we have Ms. Kessler on the telephone?
We did.
All right, but there is a quorum present in the room. Minutes will be taken all in accordance with the Florida Sunshine Laws.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks. With that, we'll move to comments from the public. Recognize Ms. Diane Royal, if you'll come to the podium. State your name and address for the record. Podium's right up here. Yep, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Diane Royal. My address is 3009 Jolly Road in St. Nicholas area of Jacksonville. On February 6th, a JEA employee came and switched out my electric meter without saying anything to me about it. I happened to notice as he was leaving that he had been there, and I questioned him about it, and he told me that he was putting in a smart meter, or a smarter meter, because the one that I had before apparently communicated one way, but this new one communicates two ways, so that in case I don't pay my bill and they have to cut off my power, you all can turn it on quickly. I have a problem with smart meters. I objected. I was told there was nothing I could do. When I called about it, I was told that I would be put on a list of other people who had problems with them, and when JEA figured out what they were going to do about it, they would let me know. And it's been over 3 months now, and I haven't heard anything, and I've been advised that I should come and speak to you all at the board. So I have problems with smart meters. There's a lot out there to read about them. I'm sure you all are aware of the issues. It's interesting how you talk about safety being so important, but smart meters are not safe. I found a statement from a Dr. David Carpenter, MD, who graduated from Harvard Medical School, who has worked with EMFs and public health for over 18 years, and he insists adamantly that there is no evidence whatsoever that smart meters are in any way safe for human beings, and that there is ample evidence that demonstrates convincingly and consistently that long-term exposure to radio frequency radiation at elevated levels increases the risk of cancer, damages the nervous system, and adversely affects the reproductive organs. I would really encourage you all to rethink the whole matter of smart meters, but if you're not willing to do that, I think that you should make some options available for people that object. I know I have friends in other states who are able to keep their own meters and pay an extra fee if it involves the person coming out to read their meter. The one that I had before didn't even require anyone to come out and read the meter because it communicated one way. And I feel that I have a right as a citizen concerned about my health and the health of my family and whoever else might buy my house after I move to be able to have a safe meter in my house. And I would respectfully ask that you all consider this issue and make some accommodation for people that object instead of just putting them on a list that who knows what happens to the list.
Thank you very much, Ms. Royal. You were right on 3 minutes. Well done. Mr. McElroy, do you want to respond to that at all?
Mr. Chairman, and to the board, currently, to my recollection, there are in excess of 50 million smart meters installed nationwide. In the state of Florida, I believe the number is in excess of 5 million. To date, certainly from an industry's perspective, as with any technology, there are contra views in the debate and the discussion. We feel comfortable in terms of recommending this technology. We have several people that have come forward and suggested a concern from a health perspective. We continue to evaluate that in terms of the way to connect those individuals, and we'll continue to work on that. It is expensive to go back into and have a one-off, and even if it's several 10, 15, 20 individuals that have very specialized metering requirements within 400,000. So we'll continue to evaluate.
Thank you, Mr. McElroy. Thank you, Ms. Royal. Kevin O'Halloran. Morning, Mr. O'Halloran.
Morning. My name is Kevin O'Halloran. I live at 1203 Hubbard Street in Springfield, Jacksonville. And I'm also a local board member for the U.S. Green Building Council of Florida. So I have a little written statement here that I'd like to ask some questions. I'm making public comment today about JEA's decision to build new headquarters downtown near the courthouse. When I skimmed the board packet information about the land swap, new site, and evaluation study, 3 questions leaped out at me. First, did JEA look and incorporate the findings of values discerned of building reuse in a recent study by the National Trust for Historic Places, commissioned by the Jesse Ball DuPont Fund? The study is entitled Reuse and Revitalization in Jacksonville, Discovering the Value of Older Buildings and Blocks. Second, will JEA raise its current parcel if it cannot sell it as is? And third, I was concerned there was no mention of complying with the City of Jacksonville Sustainable Building Ordinance, Chapter 327, specifically 2009-211-E. Whether JEA does a major renovation or builds a new building, JEA as a COJ independent agency is subject to the ordinance's mandatory provisions. For the first question regarding the recent study about reuse and revitalization, we recommend JEA read the study and understand the value of building reuse and retaining the character of downtown. There is more to moving a building than just cost and risk, though of course these are big factors. We just want JEA to weigh all the values. For the second question, we are just seeking clarification what happens if the current JEA parcel is not sold as is to another party. Will there be an empty abandoned building, or will the current building be torn down into an empty lot? For the third inquiry, USGBC Florida recommends that no matter what JEA decides to do, whether gut or rehab or build a new building, that it should choose to seek LEED certification, Leadership in Energy Environmental Design, per the Sustainable Building Ordinance provisions. The benefits of green buildings are proven through operations and maintenance ROI, health and productivity of employees and occupants, and for JEA leading by example with energy efficiency and best practices as a municipal utility. We know that JEA is open to this concept because it registered to seek LEED in existing buildings and operations and maintenance back in 2009. Renovating or building new offers great opportunities for JEA to show its leadership and lead by example with energy efficiency measures, latest technology, and best practices, and showing how to build and operate healthy, high-performance buildings. For a local example, you could go to the Jesse Ball DuPont Fund that's seeking LEED certification and they rehabbed the former Jack's Library on Adams Street. It is terrific that JEA is staying downtown and remain part of the downtown revitalization. We hope that the final building will showcase some sustainable building that makes Jacksonville proud. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. O'Halloran, and I commit to you on behalf of this board and JEA that anything we do with our future building campus will be done in compliance with all laws. The term sheet that's before the board today does call for this building to be marketed for sale for a period of time. And if it isn't successfully sold during that period of time, then there is the obligation to raise this building. And finally, we are at JEA committed to energy efficiency and certainly will take into consideration the costs and benefits of a LEED sustainable building in the new campus. So thank you very much. Anything to add to that?
No, I think you captured it great, Mr. Chairman. Good.
I'll recognize,
No, sir. No.
recognize from the council our liaison, the Honorable Greg Anderson. Mr. Anderson?
Thank you very much. Once again, want to thank each of you for your service to our community. I'm not aware of any significant legislation that is in front of our council at this point. As you are aware, council elections were completed, and beginning on July 1, our new council president, Brochet, will take office. I think our installation is coming up next week. And as part of that natural turnover, you will receive a new liaison. That liaison is going to be Matt Schellenberg. From my standpoint, I want to say how proud I am of the organization and how much I've enjoyed working with each one of you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Councilman Anderson. We appreciate your service this past year, helping us get some important legislation through the council, and wish you the best in your continued service to our city as well.
Thank you, sir.
From the mayor's office, recognize Dr. Gaffney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not much today, other than, as usual, the mayor wants to thank you all for your service, for work you're doing, and let everyone know they appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Gaffney. We appreciate him, too. No one here from Nassau County on behalf of Mr. Mullins. In that case, I'd recognize Mr. McElroy for the presentation of our J.D. Power Water Utility Residential Customer Survey results.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to defer to Ms. Carrie Stewart, our new Chief Customer Officer, and she is going to be backed up by, where is your backup? Oh, Brian's going to be there
Well, Brian's gonna
technically.
help.
And Tim Hunt, Tim Hunt, our J.D. Power, where is he? Analyst extraordinaire, so.
No backup.
No
You're on your own,
backup.
Carrie.
Okay,
No, no.
that's okay, that's okay. Week 4, a couple of training wheels still there, so I appreciate it. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Board, Paul and Jody. As the agenda states, and as Mr. McElroy said, I'm going to be presenting the 2017 J.D. Power Water Utility Residential Customer Satisfaction Results. You'll find the presentation behind 2E in your board book. I want to give you a quick overview of the study, since you are accustomed to the customer satisfaction results based on the electric side of our business. This is only J.D. Power's second year measuring residential water customer satisfaction. Over 10,000 respondents were polled through the online interviews nationwide in 4 waves from June 2016 through March 2017. Ratings are on a 1 to 10 scale, and the index scores are on a maximum of 1,000-point scale, and you'll see that here in a moment. Our annual score is the average of the 4 quarterly polls that were done over the course of the last year. And then lastly, J.D. Powers ranks us amongst 87 other water utilities and breaks the rankings out into 4 regions, of course, which we are a part of the South region. The overall score is made up of 6 drivers of satisfaction, as shown, very similar to the electric rankings.
Somebody had the button.
I just push it harder, will that?
Nope. Can we get next slide?
Yeah, they're working on it.
Oh, it's still working.
So you will see in
There it
front
is.
of you, now we have it up on the screen as well. Again, the overall score is made up of the 6 drivers of satisfaction as shown in the pie chart. JEA finished in the first quartile overall, which is fantastic news. JEA is in the first quartile in 3 out of the 6 drivers of satisfaction. You can see the weight associated with each of those drivers within the pie chart on the left. And then you can see our individualized rankings on the chart on the right-hand side of the slide. And strategies are being developed to achieve the first quartile in all drivers. Obviously, you would note that delivery is only in the third quartile in terms of a driver. And delivery relates to the reliability of water service, the quality of water service, which is the taste, color, odor, and hardness of water, and efforts to maintain infrastructure. On the next slide, we're going to provide details about the delivery attribute and what we're doing to attempt to affect that ranking. You will note that when you break the responses down into the individual elements of customer satisfaction for this attribute, bad taste and water hardness are the two that put us into the third quartile in this ranking. And further, that you'll notice that these two issues relate more to the resource itself than to the production and delivery of the resource. We're currently evaluating actions for improvement to include optimized line flushing, chlorine balancing, and additional aeration. On the next slide, you'll see that our focus on water drivers of satisfaction have resulted in upward movement on overall satisfaction. This particular slide shows us ranking with our South Regional folks. So JEA ranks 9 out of 31 compared to 13 out of 29 utilities in the South region last year. So we have improved year over year. And then the final slide is our national ranking. And we have improved our rankings within the industry and the southeastern region. And this slide shows that we rank 17 out of 87 utilities compared to 33 out of 84 utilities last year. That concludes my presentation, Mr. Chairman, unless there are any questions.
Thanks, Ms. Stewart. Any questions? Well, thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We'll move on to the consent agenda. A number of items presented there for approval by vote with no discussion. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Reverend Newell. Second? Second. Thank you, Ms. Flanagan. So for a vote, all in favor of the consent agenda?
Aye.
Any opposed? So that's approved. Next, move to item 3B and call on our CFO, Ms. Melissa Dykes. Ms. Dykes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Behind tab 3B1, I'll be presenting this afternoon the JEA fiscal year 2018 operating and capital budgets for consideration for approval by the board this afternoon. Your budget package includes the budget summary, which we reviewed last month. That's behind the agenda item and the agenda item summary. It also includes a draft letter, which we send each year from the chairman of the JEA board to the city council president, which highlights some of the key features of the budget. It includes those budget attachments, which will get attached to that letter that goes to the council president. And then there's a brief PowerPoint review of the fiscal year 2018 budget. Now, rather than go through the line items again, and I will just advance the slide so it's on the screen in front of you, but rather than read off line by line this information that we reviewed at the board meeting last month, what I thought I'd do instead is just go through some of the key highlights from the fiscal year 2018 budget and specifically focus on the strategic issues that we've been discussing with the board over the past several months and how those issues are addressed and incorporated into the budget for fiscal year 2018. From a highlights perspective, this operating budget is higher than last year's budget. It's higher by about $60 million. It's primarily driven by water sales because sales are higher. That sales assumption has been adjusted for the fiscal year 2018 budget, which has led the entire budget to be higher. We've also appropriated funds from the prior year in the water system for capital projects for fiscal year 2018. There's no rate adjustments included in 18 in either system. It includes city transfers, City of Jacksonville transfers of $245 million, which is a record number to the city. And that it consists of the $117 million contribution amount as well as public service taxes and franchise fees. Our capital program is zero-based each year. So we look at the capital needs of both of our systems each year and identify those projects on a zero-based basis that will keep our system operating efficiently and reliably. And those capital projects are included in the budget without the issuance of new debt. In fact, we're targeting $187 million in our budget of debt reduction in fiscal year 2018. Our financial metrics are all healthy, supportive of our rating agency commitments. And so what I'd like to do in terms of the discussion is transition to talking about the strategic issues that we've talked about with the board and how those issues are specifically addressed in this budget, starting with water. We've spent a fair amount of time talking about the water supply challenges that we have in our system, driven by the combination of much higher sales this year. In fact, we're approaching 10% year over year in terms of water sales increase, coupled with a conceptive use permit, which limits our withdrawals from the aquifer. From a supply perspective, our budget includes funding for an alternative water supply project, actually a purification project, going into next year, which is a really exciting project for us to be piloting in Northeast Florida. We have also budgeted for continued conservation messaging for our customers. And we're adding operationally on the capital side some additional wells around Main Street to help alleviate some of the very specific supply pressures within our region. From a nitrogen reduction perspective, we are committed to continuing to reduce nitrogen discharge into the St. Johns River. We've got 2 projects that are budgeted for fiscal year 2018 at Arlington East, the wastewater treatment facility. It's a new clarifier and an aeration line, and those 2 projects will significantly reduce the amount of nitrogen that's going into the river next year. We'll also continue with our storm hardening efforts on the water and wastewater side with additional generators to help bolster the wastewater system and other storm hardening activities that'll be taking place in fiscal year 2018, and those are included in the budget. On the electric side, our budget includes the retirement of the St. Johns River Power Park. And as a reminder, that facility is scheduled to retire in early January. And as a result of that retirement, our purchase power expense for 2018 is about $25 million lower than it was for 2017. Although CO2 risk is lower in the near term, it still makes economic sense and in fact will provide a significant financial benefit to our customers to proceed with that retirement of that coal unit, both in the short term and in the long term. We have 7 additional solar projects that are coming online in the next fiscal year, and those are included in our budget. In addition to that, we'll continue to evaluate bringing on more renewables as it makes sense for our customers. And we've actually reached the point when it comes to solar that, coupled with some federal tax credits, we're almost at parity with our fuel rate. And to the extent we can get there, we can bring on solar as a hedge for fossil fuel prices in the future. And so we may look at that in some more significant size in the future. More broadly, from a financial perspective, tax reform is possible during the next fiscal year. And the biggest impact that would have on JEA is the elimination of tax exemption, which obviously impacts how we fund our capital projects. To address that risk, we have budgeted a short-term interest rate for the next fiscal year of 3%, which gives us some margin between where our bonds are trading currently and that 3% budgeted amount, so that if anything were to jeopardize tax exemption going forward, we have the ability to absorb that in our budget. We also don't plan on issuing any long-term bonds during fiscal year 2018. That's a review of the strategic issues that we've been talking about with the board and how those issues are addressed in the budget for fiscal year 2018. It is presented to the board today for discussion and action, after which, assuming the board approves the budget today, it will be sent to City Council for their review and approval. Any questions on the budget for 18?
Thank you, Ms. Dykes. Any questions? Mr. Petway?
Nope.
Reverend Newbill? Ms. Flanagan? Mr. Cumber?
Good.
I have a couple of questions. Sorry. You knew that was coming, didn't you?
I suspected.
18.6% increase in water sales. That's no new account growth, but dramatically higher than the 10% year over year we experienced this year. I don't understand.
The short answer to that question is essentially we missed it in the budget for this year. If you look back 2 years when we set our budget for fiscal year 17, what we saw in sales growth, we really tied to weather at the time and thought it was anomalous. We didn't see that per customer growth on a systemic or system-wide basis that we really are seeing now. And so because we kind of missed it for the budget last year, we had to make that adjustment going into next year. So really you're seeing 2 years of growth there.
Thank you. That makes perfect sense. And I know this isn't necessarily your area, but are we on track for our storm hardening as we're on the threshold of storm season with new storms getting named every day now?
Yes, sir, we are. In fact, it is sort of my area because our facilities team has been working in partnership with the water and sewer team to roll out those generators, and we are on track.
Great. Last question. In all the budget discussions in DC, is there any, and sorry, I don't know the answer to this, is there any discussion on grandfathering existing tax exempt issues? Is that on the table? Have we heard that, or would it just go away overnight?
It's not that I'm aware of, and of course, there's a long way to go between now and when meaningful tax reform might occur, but all the discussions that I'm aware of and have heard, it would essentially go away overnight.
Okay. Well, thank you for your report. No one else has anything. Stay in your seats. You're up again.
Chairman Howard,
Yes, Ms. Kessler, welcome.
I am online. I didn't know if you could hear me or not.
We can now. Welcome.
Well, thank you. I've been here, but obviously there was a little glitch in the connection. But I am here and I'm listening.
Very good. Did you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Okay. Then I'll need a motion for approval of the proposed 2018 budget. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Okay, I'll recognize Ms. Flanagan. Is there a second, Mr. Petway? Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, just one point for the record, to further elaborate on the comment in terms of storm hardening, there are two issues there, the short term and the long term. I certainly would like the board to know and the community to know that over the past 5 years, we have spent over $20 million a year in hardening the distribution system. A comprehensive inventory of every pole in the system has taken place. We have replaced over 8,000 poles in this period of time, which is over $20 million a year. There's been recabling done. There's been analysis in terms of circuits that needed to be upgraded and improved for reliability, and with that have been hardened through the system too. So there is an ongoing, systemic, very large storm hardening program under the direction of Mike Ross and his team that has been occurring and will continue to occur.
Thank you. I appreciate those added comments, Mr. McElroy. And Mike, thank you to you and your team for all that's being done. Okay, if nothing else, then we'll move to B2. Ms. Dykes, the downtown campus land swap agreement between JEA and the city of Jacksonville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, we're behind tab 3B2. This item is a proposed land swap. It's really the next step in the evaluation of the future of JEA's downtown campus. In terms of the information that's in front of you today behind the tab in the agenda item, there is the agenda item and summary. There's a map, which we'll review in just a moment, that shows the two parcels of property that are proposed to be swapped under this agreement. Behind the map, there's a proposed resolution which delegates authorization to the CEO to execute the final land swap agreement on this substantively the same terms that are included in the term sheet. Behind that resolution is the term sheet itself. It's the executed term sheet which outlines, the terms and conditions for the land swap itself, and then there's a timeline for the new campus. As supplemental information, we've also included in the package 2 presentations that have been given to the board previously. The first is a staff summary of the work that's been done to evaluate the options for our downtown campus. And the second is a report that was prepared by an outside consultant that we brought in to really look at those same questions, to make sure that we are spending our customers' money wisely and responsibly, and doing what's in the best interest of our JEA customers and our community. As background, our downtown campus is direly in need of significant restoration and rebuilding, where our major building systems are end of life. And so as we reckoned with that a few years ago, we embarked on a study to really evaluate the best financial and operating solution for our downtown campus, both in the short term and in the long term. In terms of options that we evaluated, we looked at renovating our existing campus, we looked at demoing these buildings, rebuilding on the same site, or we looked at locating at an alternative site. And after extensive analysis, that third option, to build on a new location, was identified as the best path forward. That new location was restricted to be in the downtown core, which is consistent with the board's policy to stay downtown and invest in that downtown core for downtown development. So as you'll see on the map that's on your screen, and there's a copy of it in the board package in front of you, you'll see that the proposed location, it is a city-owned parcel of property. It's adjacent to the new courthouse. And you can see on the right-hand side of that map, the left-hand side of that map, the existing JEA downtown campus location. These are the two parcels of land that are proposed to be swapped under this agreement and the term sheet that's presented to you today. The new parcel of land is located, again, next to the courthouse, which puts it essentially in the government center of downtown. It's located near the City Hall building, near the Ed Ball building, excuse me, and the new courthouse, which creates a government complex in that area. It's large enough to house the JEA building and parking garage, and is currently vacant. It's used for some city parking, and there's a couple of construction trailers on it, but otherwise it's a vacant piece of property. If you'll flip to the term sheet, what I'll do is just quickly review the key terms and business terms of the term sheet, and I'll ask if Jody, if you wouldn't mind cleaning up anything I might miss in this presentation. On page 1 of the term sheet, the purpose of the swap is to provide a parcel of land for the construction of JEA's new downtown campus. Then there's the identification of the two city parcels below that. Flipping to page 2, within 60 days of execution of the term sheet, there's a commitment by all the parties that have executed this. And as a reminder, this is signed by DIA, the City of Jacksonville, and JEA. To enter into a definitive agreement. In terms of consideration, if you look at the assessed value of each of these two parcels of land, they're virtually identical. And so because of the assessed value and just how similar the assessed values are, this is considered to be a like-for-like land swap, and that is the consideration under the contract. In terms of due diligence, JEA's got 270 days from when the land swap agreement is signed to finish its due diligence process on that new piece of property. And that'll include environmental testing and other testing to make sure that that new piece of property will meet JEA's needs for a downtown campus. Flipping to page 3, the construction trailers are called out as a separate line item on here. If we can make use of them, that would be in everybody's best interest, and if not, they'll be removed. We'll also continue to talk to the city about parking, because parking is a scarcity downtown. We'll talk to the city about whether it benefits them and us for them to include some additional parking in this construction. As was talked about during the public comment period, we will market the existing downtown campus for 180 days, and really use best efforts to try to get these buildings sold, since that really will be in everybody's best interest. To the extent we can't, we have committed to taking these buildings down and leaving behind an empty piece of property that can then be used for future downtown development. If we can get the building sold, then anything in excess of the assessed value will be split between JEA and the City of Jacksonville. Anything under the assessed value will make up to the City of Jacksonville because we've received essentially a like value in the land that we've received under the swap. The testing and environmental we'll be responsible for on our own site, and we'll not only identify any issues, but also complete any remediation that's required. JEA is responsible for closing costs. And then flipping to page 5, there's some legal, what I call cleanup provisions that are included in the term sheet. So those are the key business points that have been negotiated between JEA, the City of Jacksonville, and DIA for this land swap. Jody, is there anything you'd like to add in terms of comment on this agreement?
No, we're working with Edwards Cohen, with David Edwards, who actually helped the city and the school board on a land swap with the definitive agreements that we're in the process of drafting currently.
The last piece of information that's included in the package is just a draft schedule that's laid out, and it really is very preliminary in terms of the schedule that's provided, but based on this, we hope conservative and preliminary schedule, this calls for us to begin construction on a new site in early 2019. Any questions about the proposed land swap?
Thank you, Ms. Dykes. Any questions? Mr. Petway?
No questions.
Reverend Newbill?
You want to move approval, Mr. Chair?
Well, let me check. Ms. Flanagan, any questions? Mr. Cumber?
And Ms. Kessler is on here. I don't know if Flanagan's on here or not, but this is Kessler.
I've got Ms. Flanagan here. Ms. Kessler, did you have any questions regarding the land swap?
No, I didn't. I didn't know if you were talking to her. I don't know who's there, so no, I don't. Thank you, Mr. Howard.
Everybody's here but you.
And I feel it. I'm sorry.
That's all right. We're glad you were able to join us by telephone.
Thank you.
Okay. I would just like to thank Ms. Dykes and the entire team. The timeline shows from 17 forward. What it doesn't show is all the work that's gone into this process to get us to this point. exhaustive work by the staff, by our outside consultants, Fairlead, ETM, and Haskell. Considered half a dozen different options, untold hours that went into this process, and I'm confident we've come to a good conclusion and the right conclusion. Looking forward to moving ahead with this. May I have a motion for the approval of Resolution 2017-32?
I move approval.
Thank you, Mr. Petway. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Reverend
Second.
Newville. Thank you. Any?
Mr.
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to comment and endorse what you just said about making sure that everybody understands what due diligence has gone into this project, and remind you that the Government Affairs / Real Estate Committee of this board has been involved in this process since, I guess we all came on the board over a year ago, almost 2 years ago now. This has been going on a long time, and I think it's really a good product, and I'm hoping that we can be successful with as outlined in the term agreement. And as a footnote, I'd like to ask Mr. Halloran to stay around after the meeting. I want to give him this entire presentation so he can see, for example, exactly what's going on here. It's a public record, right?
Yes, sir.
Halloran, I'd like for you to have your personal copy. If you see me after the meeting, I'll make sure you get it. That's all I
Thank you,
have,
Mr.
Chairman.
Petway. Appreciate that. Any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Dykes.
you.
Appreciate that. Moving on to item B3 of the agenda, call on Ed Dendor, the Director of Emergency Preparedness and Business Continuity, for a presentation on our hurricane preparedness. Mr. Dender,
Good afternoon.
welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, board members, Paul, fellow employees and guests. I'm Ed Dendor, the Director of Emergency Preparedness and Business Continuity. Report to John McCarthy under Melissa Dykes in the finance area. I appreciate the opportunity to outline to you JEA's Hurricane Readiness Program in preparation for this year's hurricane season. Of course, we're in it right now. My role is to prepare JEA's team to respond and recover from all hazards. The hurricane season actually started June 1st and will run through November 30th. For this year's hurricane season, they are forecasting a slightly higher than normal season, with 14 named storms, 7 hurricanes, and 3 storms with a category of 3 or higher. The highest probability for storm activity is more toward the latter part of the season, which would be the August, September, and then into the October timeframe. We increase our resiliency by continually preparing year-round for all hazards. JEA annually performs system hardening improvement projects, maintains standards of preparedness, tests and trains our response and recovery procedures, as well as applying lessons learned from last year's season, as well as any activations we have had. Throughout the year, JEA continually hardens our system with programs like pole inspections and replacements, tree trimming, vine management programs, managing hazardous palms, and performing maintenance projects like transmission tower maintenance. Each year, we, as we approach the hurricane season, we ramp up our standards of preparedness by increasing our storm stock inventory. JEA increases approximately 100 storm stock items that are estimated at about $1.8 million. Some of these items are held at our vendors' warehouses as well as their stockyards. Because of our preparedness, during Hurricane Matthew, for example, we were able to satisfy all the material needs that were requested from our on-hand stock, even though our crew size were well beyond our normal size with our mutual aid crews here in town. I'd like to go ahead and show a short 2-minute video. It was predicated on our 5-day hurricane drill that JEA had participated in jointly with other city agencies, and it was in the first week of May.
Please.
This year, JEA's week-long hurricane exercise had an overriding theme: interagency communication.
When we have a situation or an incident like a hurricane, it's not just one agency, it's a collective of agencies. It's the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, Jacksonville Fire and Rescue, Department of Public Works, contractors that we bring in, as well as JEA, Jacksonville International Airport. All these agencies have to work collectively together to get the city put back together, essentially.
To help improve interagency communication during a hurricane, JEA and the city's Emergency Operations Center tested a new way of communicating during this year's exercise via WebEx conference.
We have a 9 o'clock unified command meeting and the JEA crews will...
With a WebEx conference, JEA can see and hear the city's situational report at its Emergency Operations Center, and vice versa. It's a faster, more effective way to communicate between agencies and will supplement JEA's efforts to communicate more outage information with customers during a storm.
I think we learned that we've got to augment and add to the communication from what's being heard at the city EOC. It does a wonderful job, and the mayor's team does a wonderful job. We have to stay involved in that.
This year, JEA also participated in an ERAT drill as part of the hurricane exercise. ERATs stand for Emergency Road Access Teams. Key agencies needed to clear blocked roads after a storm travel together in a convoy or ERAT team in order to make the process of initial damage assessment more efficient.
Once they get there, the JSO guys would set up and block the intersections and maintain traffic control while we're out there doing our work. JEA would go up to the, let's say, the down power line or transformer and do their work. Once they clear it, safe for our guys to go in and do the actual cutting of the trees or debris, our guys will go in and try to start cutting things up. And then we bring Public Works in to move the big stuff out of the way, push it, clear it curb to curb, just so we can gain access.
ERATs have proved so successful in Jacksonville, it may soon become a national best practice after a damaging storm.
As demonstrated in the video, JEA preparedness efforts are wide-reaching. For 5 days, each day, JEA communicated with the city's emergency management staff. According to Director Woodard, who previously worked at the federal emergency management level and now heads up the city's emergency management division, stated that he has never seen a utility and a city agency work as closely as they do together. Never. This year's exercise was the first time that we've actually conducted such an integrated exercise. Over recent years, JEA has implemented the National Incident Management, or NIMS, structure as a systematic structure to transform how JEA leads our own crews as well as our mutual aid crews during the response and recovery efforts. The incident command team is scalable as well as flexible. This project process integrates JEA very well with the city of Jacksonville to organize mutual aid, resources, as well as maintaining a unified response and a unified command. By using this methodology, JEA has implemented the best industry practices, all while delivering a common message. And a few lessons JEA has learned from Hurricane Matthew was reaffirmed by applying these lessons learned last month during our annual exercise. For example, we requested additional mutual aid resources early. We have modified our operations, which has increased our pump station resiliency, and will continue to improve that plan. All of these lessons have been applied while maintaining good lines of communication amongst city agencies, city leaders, as to a well-choreographed agency operations and tactics like the ERAT process. All this work in an effort to minimize the impact from the storm. And with that, in closing, I'd like to say thank you for allowing me the opportunity to demonstrate and to share with you how we prepare for a hurricane season. Chairman, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Dindor. Any questions? Well, on behalf of the board, I'd like to thank you and your team for all that you guys do to make JEA look good during a storm. It's a blessing to live in Florida, but even paradise suffers from storm clouds from time to time, and we appreciate you guys being prepared to see us through that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll turn to Mr. McElroy for the monthly operational and financial review, item 3B4 in your board package.
Okay. And I'm just going to call slides if I can. Next one, please. Thank you. We're going to start with the water and sewer. Performance year to date is strong. The one area that we have fallen behind in the last number of months has been safety, although the month of May we did have a good performance in safety. We had one recordable, which was not a significant, but did affect some lost time medication for the employee. In the other areas, in terms of sales and outages, CUP compliance, as well as nitrogen, we're all green. Looks as though we're on track to achieve our targets. It's going to be a little stretched at the nitrogen as we close out the year, given the heavy rain. It's having a little more nitrogen to the river for us, but we're well beyond, or well below our limits and our licenses and permits. Sanitary sewer overflows are tracking a little bit ahead of goal, but in line with the prior year, and are consistent certainly with best-in-class EPA standards for a system our size. Next slide, please. On electric, same comment in terms of the safety. Sales in electric continue to lag, certainly last year in our goal, and have tempered off again this month with the rain that we've had. So we're targeting right now 12 million megawatt hours. The performance in terms of the grid is doing well. We're seeing a little more electric outage duration, and that has picked up a bit in the last month or so with the storm activity that we've had. Mike and his team are going to focus on trying to get that back to the goal by the end of the year. I would point to the outstanding performance on CME 5 in terms of 0.6, which is well below our goal and significantly below prior years' performance, outstanding performance by the team. The generating fleet continues to perform at exceptional levels. Next slide, please. In terms of customer experience, I would just point to a couple things here. We talked about J.D. Power in terms of, and these are the electric satisfaction, still tracking first quartile and achieving our objective. For the residential, we fell slightly behind, about 3 or 4 points in the places in the survey out of the top quartile, so we'll miss that this year. But when we look at first contact resolution, 80% up above last year's outstanding performance and ahead of this year's goal. I would look at self-service utilization, and this is a tribute really to our team and its planning efforts and the allocation of resources and the system support that we have in putting together a great service offering for our customers to be able to provide self-service, which is something that our customers want and find to be very useful and productive. So at 78%, I never really thought that, quite frankly, would be feasible, but it's absolutely outstanding given the breadth and really the scope of our customer base. Write-offs continue to be well below expectation and in line with last year's great performance. One more. On the financial side, goodness, just outstanding performance across the board in terms of achieving our financial goals for the year. We see one yellow dot. We are 7 cents off the mark at this point in time for a net fuel per megawatt hour goal. I had a conversation with a group of fellow executives over the weekend, and they were focusing on a leader in the industry, Mid-America, which is Warren Buffett electric utility. They own a number of other subsidiary utilities out in the Midwest and the Northwest. And Bill Furman used to work with us at Nebraska Public Power with the Energy Authority, heads up Mid-America now. And they were marveling at how they were thinking, Bill has driven their business and their cost performance by implementing in the last year cost per megawatt hour metrics throughout the utility. So if I was really interested, we did that 4 years ago at JEA. So we continue to show leadership, I think, across the board in our financial and operational metrics, and that certainly shows in the scorecards here. And that's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. McElroy. Any questions? Mr. Petway?
No question.
Reverend Newbell? Mr. Cumber?
Good.
Ms. Flanagan? I have a couple of questions. And this may relate to, did somebody chuckle out there?
Yeah. Not me, Mr. Chairman.
On the water side, one of the slides you included in the operational report spoke to use of reclaimed water and increases available to us under our annual cup limit, provided we achieve certain metrics. When I look at that, 32 million gallons a day for reclaimed water seems like a whole lot to get to in 5 years to maintain our ability to increase the cup limit. I know we're 5 years away from it, but can you speak to where we're headed in that direction and if that's still a feasible goal?
Well, I would recategorize it as not necessarily a goal, in terms of it is the structure of the permit. In order to get the next 10 million gallons per day increment in the cup, we have to essentially increase our reclaimed by about 10 million.
Right.
Now, the cost benefit of that is something that we've been working on for really 8 years now, in terms of looking and trying to define whether that makes sense. There's opportunities for efficiency and for the development of other sources, potentially without going to the aquifer, that would be more cost-effective than trying to retrofit and force, if you will, reclaimed into our service territory. The 32 million gallons per day really was a higher growth and a higher usage per residential connection in the original modeling, which is almost a decade ago now in terms of the consumptive use. So, short version is, our planning right now, long-term for water use is at the lower level. We're not assuming that we're going to need, nor are we planning for that next 10 million increment of water from the aquifer. If we do, it'll probably be an alternative source. We think that probably will be more cost-effective than retrofitting and forcing reclaimed utilization into the service territory.
I appreciate all of that, and I know we've got room under our cup.
Yep.
But Ms. Dykes keeps coming over here and reminding us that we had 10% year-over-year growth in water, and we forecast even greater next year, so I'm concerned about it. And I know that there's also some effort underway at the staff level for conservation education.
Yes.
To manage demand. And I just ask that maybe staff report to the board at one of our upcoming meetings on those short-term, mid-term, and long-term efforts at conservation education and awareness. I know the immediate past chair raised that issue, and it's something that's going on at the staff level, but I'm not sure the board is fully educated as those efforts.
Yep. Yes, we will tee that up in the next meeting or two. Focus again on things that we have been engaged in. This is not an issue of just starting in the last 30 or 60 days. We've been engaged for a number of years, and in terms of short, mid, and long term. And of course, you know, the next point too, in terms of education, promotion, and communication to our customers, to kind of turn off the sprinklers today,
Right.
to conserve water. And if we can't get that messaging, you know, one effective way is a price lever, in terms of certainly from an irrigation standpoint. So we'll look at all of the alternatives, are looking at all of the alternatives, and bring that to them.
Thank you, Mr. McElroy. That's a good segue to item 3C on the 3C on the agenda, open discussion. Just to open it up, as the immediate past chair pointed out, we don't have the opportunity under sunshine law to chat amongst ourselves as members of the board. So if there are items of interest, questions, now's an opportune time to bring them up.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
it seems like everything we talk about has something that evolves around communication, and mostly with our customers, I think. And if we're not talking about it, we should be, I think, because our customers are our lifeblood. The president has taught us all how to tweet. I didn't know how to tweet before the president came along.
Glad he taught you. I don't know how.
I don't tweet either, but I know how.
Okay.
And I still hear a lot of noise about FP&L communicating with our customers, and I see a lot of it myself. It seems to me like if we want to remind our customers of something, we ought to come up with some way to be communicating with all of them on a direct basis. Do we? I mean, I know we have them on the I guess on a mailing list or email list or something where we can mirror a bill relationship. Do we have a mass, if we wanted to send a message tomorrow, do we have a mass way to reach our people, reach our customers?
We have a variety of channels in terms of certainly what's become the legacy phone, in terms of pushing out phone calls on an automated basis. To the extent that we've been able to capture and match up databases to get good phone numbers, cell phone numbers for texts and as well as email addresses. And so over the last number of years, we've made it a concerted effort to try to collect and clean up those files as best we can to be able to use those additional channels, both cell and email. We are engaged on the website in a significant way and try to push as much traffic as we can to the website and communicate there. We're looking at establishing over this summer really a website governance structure within JEA from a staff level to ensure that we're maximizing the value of the website as a primary communication vehicle to our customers, stakeholders, and other constituents. We have been engaged on Twitter and have utilized that to some success, but we're also going to undertake a review of really the social media in the next 6 months and looking at Twitter and Facebook. We're on Facebook. That's had some success and some challenges tied with it as well. I think the one area where we find ourselves clearly from a public power versus an investor-owned utility is the paid advertisement, paid airways. There's more flexibility in terms of what a public utility can spend their customers' money on versus ours. I mean, our focus when we communicate directly through the electronic or paid media is really targeted at conservation messaging and service delivery, how we can assist the customer in accessing our products and services, more of an educational twist to it. So we do fall behind on that, but the answer is we've got the next several months a good focus on the website, improving that, the impact of the website, utilization of the website. We're really taking a hard look at the social media and how we can use that more effectively.
I think it's a great point, Mr. Petway. I'll offer a suggestion. It's hard to capture emails. Do we capture them at the customer service desk if someone comes in to ask a question or make a payment? If not, it seems like that'd be an opportunity with customer interaction to capture an email or a cell phone number.
Yeah, when we have when we have communication, whether it's payment or phone conversation to clean it up. Now, some of that we get directly. Some people won't give their information or don't want that information. We'll try to connect it through other opportunities, other public opportunities to pick up that information.
And just because somebody's going to ask, we don't sell that information in the commercial marketplace.
We do not sell that information in the commercial marketplace.
Thank you. Mr. Petway?
Mr. McElroy, that was a fine answer, but I'm still worried about what we're not doing. What part don't we understand? Let me ask another question, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Please.
If we bill everybody, 425,000 people, we bill them, it's either through the U.S. mail or through the internet.
Yes.
Do we know the percentage that it would be internet versus U.S. mail?
We do. I do not offhand.
Okay.
And I could.
Because at the very least, we could capture everybody at the billing level if somehow we could duplicate an internet contact, just like a U.S. mail contact, And I'm sure we're doing a lot of that, but I don't think our customers really understand what a great service we're offering here and what a benefit it is and what a value it is. And if we don't tell them, nobody else is going to tell them. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Petway. Yes.
Yeah, I would add, I think that, in the next schedule of meetings or so, maybe give us a month or two, and we'll come back in a short version, 1 or 2 pages, and show the channels and the traffic of channels and communication that we have with the customers. That might be important information.
Very good. Anyone else? Open discussion. And we'll move on to other new business. New business? I have a item, and maybe it's more appropriate under old business. Included in our board package was a notice that we are approaching our 10 megawatt private solar limit. And I just asked staff to bring to the board for discussion at a meeting either in July or August, a presentation and recommendation on how to address the solar cap. That's currently a hard cap that we are operating under, is that correct?
Yes, it is, Mr. Chairman, and I would ask the board's indulgence here. There are some very unique anomalies going on in the solar market at this point in time. Ms. Dykes alluded to that in her conversation, where a good bulk of our time has been focused on while we've been communicating with the solar constituents within the community, and we've had 3 hearings, and we've continued to assess that information and target at the smaller segment of our business, we are looking at a very significant opportunity to not only reduce but stabilize and lock in cost via solar technologies, and it has diverted some of our resources towards this bigger goal and objective in terms of solar. So I'm not sure if July might deflect us, and I would say that there is a real-time sense of urgency in terms of this opportunity in the solar market now, given current panel pricing on a scalable event or scalable investment, and with some of the tax implications as well. So if we could look maybe August or September for that might be helpful in terms of staff load. There's just we're not ready yet to fully come out and make a recommendation one way or the other on this, but there is an emerging very large opportunity for us and our community. I think will really push Jacksonville to the forefront in terms of clean and green energy, as well as doing it in the right cost-effective way.
Well, thank you. I'm just cognizant of the board materials which said we may hit a hard limit in October.
Yep. Yes.
So if you could do that, I appreciate it. Any other new business, old business? Maybe that was old. Anything? And we'll move to agenda item 4A. Mr. McElroy.
I was going to update on solar,
Good.
so we've done that. You're ahead of me there. I think just to follow up on the Ed's presentation, we will push out to the board a board member storm package. We'll provide you with information about what to expect before, during, and after the storm. The primary means of communication to you, so you're aware of the activities that we're doing. But so I would look for that in the next week or so. We'll prepare that, have that out to you. And that's really it for it.
Plant Vogel?
Plant Vogel, we successful last couple of weeks. The owners group was able to achieve agreement and signed agreements with Westinghouse and Toshiba. Westinghouse for a continuing service agreement, which is in the best interest of the owners group, that Westinghouse will continue to provide the design, engineering, and licensing aspect of the project, and the rest of services and construction will be managed by a Southern company, Southern Nuclear. And that, again, is in the best interest of the project. There was also a firm agreement reached with Toshiba that firms up in a very unambiguous way the guarantee of $3.68 billion. There is a payment schedule associated with that will accrue to the benefit of the owners. Will be paid out over the next 30 months. It's tied to Toshiba's performance and financial stability, as well as several big asset sales that they have planned and are continuing to pursue. And I think making good progress in terms of the chip business, as well as the ultimate sale of Westinghouse.
Not out of the woods yet, but very positive steps.
Not out of the woods, but it's good foundation for the next steps in the decision-making process on the project.
Very good, thank you. Any questions from Mr. McElroy? Mr. Betway?
No question, I just have a comment.
Comment.
I'd like to take a second and publicly thank JEA staff and Paul and his people for their hard work on this downtown campus resolution that we passed today, and publicly thank the mayor and his staff. There's a lot of work has gone on between those two places, and they've worked very closely together and very well together, and they've come up with what I think is a great solution for the JEA and our customers. So if you see the mayor, thank him for his participation and his people supporting what we recommend to be the next generation of our home across town here.
Thank you, Mr. Petway. I second that. So much of what we talk about here is just the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
There's so much that goes on underneath the water. It's the proverbial duck, not to mix my metaphors, but it seems all nice and smooth when we talk about it and approve it and report it here, but there's been a lot of furious paddling under the water to get us to that point. So paddling icebergs, thank you for all your work. Any other comments, questions from Mr. McElroy on his report? I'll be very brief in my report. Committee appointments, I promised at our last board meeting. Ms. Flanagan has graciously agreed to continue serving as Chair of Finance and Audit. Mr. Cumber will continue on the Finance and Audit Committee. There's one open seat on our board, which will be designated to serve on that committee. Mr. Petway previously appointed and agreed to serve as Chair of the Government Legal and Real Estate Affairs Committee. And Mr. Cumber and Reverend Newbill have agreed to serve on that. You guys will have a lot of work to do going forward with this downtown campus, so thank you in advance for that. Ms. Kessler on the phone has previously agreed to continue her service as Chair of Compensation Committee. Ms. Flanagan and Mr. Petway will serve with her on that committee. Nominating committee will consist of the officers, and those are the committee appointments for this year. In the same vein as Mr. Petway, I want to thank Mr. McElroy, Ms. Dykes, and their entire team on this budget. I didn't say this earlier, but when I look at no increase on the water side, no base rate increase on the electric side, $187 million pay down in debt, and $5.6 million in savings on the pension. That's sort of a net with the pension and increases in labor. I'll say that it's a heck of a budget, and I know there were some paddling icebergs there too. So thank you very, very much for that effort. Anything else before we adjourn? Hearing none, we stand adjourned.